to the modern market. This is our daily show where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We have a red day for majors. Bitcoin, ETH, Sol down. Charts do not look great today. We'll get into a discussion on that. Number two, CoinDesk reports DeFi project World Liberty Financial connected to Trump family plan to issue the WLFI token. We're going to dive into what this new DeFi project from the presidential candidate is and what we think about that as well. And finally, FBI releases alert that North Korea is aggressively targeting the crypto industry. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs and some further discussion on Paul Graham's influential founder mode essay, which has been going viral this week. A few more parts of the conversation that we started yesterday, so stay tuned for that. Today, we've got legendary Sam and Bread in the co-host seats. Got a full house. We're ready to get into it. But just before we do, just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice, unfortunately, because we don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Sammy, first, how are you doing? It is the Wednesday. It is 4th of September. Just throwing it to you first there to make sure you're awake.
You actually caught me off guard there. I was looking at my screens and stuff. I was expecting to have legendary first in a couple of minutes, and then, yeah, I like it. Keeping my toes. Yeah, I'm good. It's Wednesday. Back from. I don't think I've seen you guys since last week, so got to experience Manu in the box with the crypto crowd, which is pretty cool over the weekend.
Again, the Web3 influencer lifestyle is proving to be very appealing. Sammy, why don't you explain what you were up to?
So yeah, I just went to Old Trafford to watch the Man U Liverpool game. Obviously, they lost 3-0, which wasn't great, but still great atmosphere. Got to meet a bunch of other guys. So Satoshi Stacker, Sheldon the Sniper from Crypto.
You said obviously, like all of us know that. I don't know that. I don't watch these footy games as an American, boys.
Thank you, Brett. Same here.
Sorry, I keep thinking because we got British people on the stage. It's like, okay, I'm just chatting to British people, but it's not the case at all. I apologize.
There's a big game, Brad. You should know about it. You should.
I refuse. I refuse. I've lost all American sports, if I'm being totally honest. Web3 is my sport. It is my game now.
Although there's an overlap now, isn't there, with prediction markets, all this kind of stuff, sport betting. It's coming on chain. So yeah, I'm dabbling with that actually. That's something I've been looking closely into.
Okay. I'm going to hook you up with someone. Honestly, there's a sports book team has reached out to me. They're actually pretty cool. I had a meeting with them and I'm like, listen, I can't help you anymore. I used to do this shit. And it's like now, like platform mechanisms, cool. But like, I would never use this anymore because I don't understand. I don't watch any sports.
Interesting stuff. So it was a good day out, Sam. Good day out.
Yeah, it was good. Yap Stam even got a photo with me, so he's a lucky guy.
Have you been telling that joke to everyone that he wanted a photo with you? That was the same joke you sent us in the Discord.
Yeah, no, but you're not supposed to say that.
It's good. Yeah. I think it's good. I like the joke. I think you should use it more as the week goes on. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I keep plugging away.
Legendary, how you doing? It's Wednesday, middle of the week. Feeling fine? Charts going down?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm glad that Brett is in my corner when it comes to football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. I had a call with someone from a cryptocurrency exchange, and they were like, "Do you want to come to this game? Do you want to come to that game? There's this cup." I'm like, I have no idea what those games are. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've heard of, I've heard of Bayern Munich and I've heard of AC Milan and all these others, but I'm like, I don't know what this cup exactly is. The things that I did recognize were like the tennis opens that I was invited to, but football completely lost me. But I think it's because I'm Austrian and because Austrian football performance is so terrible that I still have PTSD from that.
It's funny, you kind of rise up the ranks in like, I don't know, whatever industry you are, but everything defaults. Like when it comes to entertainment, there's nothing entertaining that's native to Web3, right? Like I guess you could get invited to a conference, you could get invited to something like that, but to take you outside back into the sporting world seems to be the default type of entertainment. Brad, rounding it off with you, how are you doing? Been a couple of days since you've been on.
Yeah, my life's pretty fucking hectic, if I'm being honest. Like you can't see now because we cleaned it all up, but So Singapore's coming, right? You guys know
It
about
is?
that. Yeah, right. 2049 is 10 days away. I'm not just going to Singapore. I'm going to Singapore and then backpacking for a few months. So prepping for that. But also, whenever, so we're moving out of this place and moving into a new place when we return. So I'm basically selling my entire life over the last 10 days.
You're moving.
I don't
to
have a car anymore.
Singapore, and
I
then-
just, yeah, I'm gonna be assetless while I'm in Singapore and just Southeast Asia for like 3 months, and then come back with no assets, and then like, all right, let's move across the country. So I sold my
I
car,
heard
that's gone.
if you
Sold
become
my house,
assetless,
gone.
Brad, you don't need to pay tax anymore anywhere specifically.
Joke's on
what
you. No, that's not the case in America. They have something they can get because I'm selling stuff. Well, I got taxes on all the stuff I sold, and then just because I exist, more taxes. That's just how this works.
Oh well.
Americans pay taxes everywhere, no matter where they live.
Oh yeah,
Citizenship, pay taxes in the States.
yeah.
Wait,
I worked in
so-
Norway for a couple of years, and didn't step foot in America for years, and that did not matter. I was paying taxes to Missouri. I was paying taxes to America. I was paying taxes to Norway. Everyone wanted their cut.
Do you pay taxes on selling secondhand goods, even if it's at a loss?
No, like, and obviously it's what you report. So like car, houses, that's how it's registered. So like that stuff I'm paying. Like there's no way around that. But like if I sell my fucking computer at a loss, no, I don't. They don't know about that.
That's one of the funniest things that maybe Americans are aware of, but like that concept is really strange to us as Europeans / probably anywhere else in the world. This like overarching tax, just like no matter where you go, you will still be taxed. Oh well.
Unless I renounce, it's theirs. And then even if I renounce, on the way out the door, they go, all right, give us like 30% of everything.
That is a great strategy. Great strategy. Keeps people in, to be honest. It seems like it, at least for now.
Changed my life. I was gonna get residency elsewhere, and I'm just like, fuck it. I'll just stay in America and slow travel elsewhere. I don't want the privilege of paying taxes in more than one country. Like,
yeah, you're the live test of this. Good stuff. Right, let's get into the markets. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of red that I'm seeing here. It's kind of hurting my eyes to see. Let's start with the price action, then we'll get into the headlines from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you're listening on Twitter, Bitcoin is down 4% to 56.5K. ETH is down over 4% to 2.3K. Solana is also down almost 4% to $129. Getting into the headlines themselves, red across the board, as we just said. CoinDesk reports that DeFi project World Liberty Financial, connected to the Trump family, plans to issue the WLFI token. Some extra information there. The Donald Trump connected crypto project World Liberty Financial will reportedly involve a non-transferable governance token and credit protocol, according to a CoinDesk report citing since deleted GitHub code. The protocol is largely based on DeFi protocol Do Finance. We'll dive into that in a bit. And next, FBI releases alert that North Korea is aggressively targeting crypto industry. There's a little bit of more information there. I kind of did a little bit of investigation as to what's going on with this North Korea thing. People joke about it so much that I wanted to look into it a bit more. But yeah, something to keep in mind. Notable sales from around the space. ACK, Mr. Shady selling for 13 ETH, and 2 Tyler Hobbs Fidenders selling for 31 ETH each. Legendary, that's the price action and the headlines. What's going on with our NFT marketplace partner, Mintify?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the majors when it comes to JPEGs. Also looking rather red with a few exceptions. Bored Apes down another 3% at 11.4 ETH floor. Pudgies now, they've been pretty stable, but they have now seen their first dip in a bit more than a week, down 4% to a 10.2 ETH floor. Azuki is actually up a touch, up 0.8% at a 4.84 ETH floor. Milady's still down another 3%, 3.33 ETH floor. In terms of notable collections that are actually up, one that I want to look at is Today the Game. They're Ancient Seeds. They are up 11% on the day, 40% over the last 7 days. They've been highly successful with this collection. And with the staking that came with it, that kind of had various benefits from other communities as well as additional mints in that AI-based gaming sector. And the second collection I want to look at is Creeps, back at the 1.7 ETH floor with a 21% pump over the last 24 hours, 35% pump over the last 7 days. Not a lot of volume in this collection, just 8.6 ETH. So that's 6 sold over the last 24 hours, but still a nice increase in price.
Interesting. What's going on with some of these collections, Legendary, that are pumping? You got any sense of why some of these JPEGs are moving?
I think more so with Today the Game, because their staking was well received. The extension of that was well received. You had different durations that you could lock up your token for. I think the maximum was 2 months, and a lot of people choose to extend last time. So that's been going pretty well on their side. As for Creeps, I don't know what's going on in that ecosystem.
Well, I guess obviously Creeps is very much connected to Portal. I shared this chart the other day. People might, I mean, just have a look at this chart. I wonder if there's been any action on the token itself. I know sometimes when teams launch tokens, they kind of become connected to the token's performance, but that can't be the case in this instance, because if you look at the Portal chart, which I'm just going to share on screen, remember we're live on X video and YouTube video as well, if you prefer watching in. But just looking at this chart, it's pretty tough to look at, I think, if you were kind of involved in that ecosystem, just factually. It came out the gate. Remember, one of the most anticipated launches smashed the social farming kind of meta back in, what was it, January into February, which was very, very highly anticipated. I think launched the token at the back end of February as high as 250. I think the token came out at.
The original social cope token. Right? That was the one that like everyone coped on because it was the surprise and kind of started a meta, right?
Yes, it was. People very much coped on that, and down to 23 cents from $2.50, with very little respite in terms of the selling. And that's, I think, to do with the vesting schedule, where all of those investors who did kind of enter into that pre-sale, apart from the initial kind of, how would you describe it? The kind of pre-seed and seed had a cliff. But those kind of angels that were coming in during that hype period, I don't think that, well, there was not a cliff. So people have just been investing endlessly for the last year or so. And to be fair, I think there's also a little bit of people raising questions of like to what extent they've managed to like actually delivered on that core product. I know there was talk of a game, there's a wallet, there's some integrations with the token into like being able to use the token as part of buying NFTs on like various NFT markets. I think like using Portal instead of ETH and stuff like that. But I think there's been just question marks as to like what they've actually delivered in that period of time, and maybe expecting more. I think, Brad, you said you kind of mentioned, remember this well. What's your kind of assessment of this, either the NFT or the token, or just like how this has played out?
I was just laughing because it's like the sellers found more tokens. Like that's like there's more. They found more to sell. There's more to sell. Always, always, always. And there's just relentless shit. And like in my head, initially I was like, to the surprise of no one, coins down only. But then I tried to have like a little retrospective of like, well, is that true? Was that true at the time? Like we're not surprised now with the benefit of hindsight, but I was trying to think of like the optimism at the time and like what people were saying and whatever, like, just try to like whatever. I remember it having a high valuation, which is what surprised a lot of people whenever it kicked off, and like what caught everyone off guard. Like, holy shit, how does this thing go in so much? I know part of that is just like the outperformance of some of the BNB launchpad stuff, right? And like that was actually why BNB is doing so well, is because people are holding on to that shit. They get some allocation to projects like this, and they're able to dump. And I don't know. So no distinct comments on that, but just trying to be reflective of whatever. So everything is down only. It's been down only for a while, and maybe the commentary is just like how my mindset has changed on the market as a whole, like everything's down. It will always be down, and it's going to be down for a while. Maybe it's time to go up because of that.
Do you think that's where you're kind of shaking out now? Like after seeing this, like last 6-7 months, it's just like, this is the reality. Everything goes down with this structure.
So I personally, like, I'm not any less bullish or whatever in the industry. Like, I think everything's going up, but like, I think it's definitely to the point where it changes my own behavior, because despite my own bullishness, it's like, well, right now it's kind of an inevitability. So if I get my hands on tokens, I should probably fucking just, eat the clip and move on, because until that market structure changes, like, why would it, why would any project be the exception to what's going on right now? So
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, just for the sake of it. I think when we talked about airdrops, and I know this was different with Portal and with the farming campaign that they had, that we've seen basically a downwards price trajectory for 6 months. And then if a project did well, it recovered and it found its kind of true floor price or its true market cap. Portal is kind of 6 months old. Over the last 30 days, Portal has been up. It's up 11% versus BTC, for example, which is up 7%. And if anything, I think this is a critical phase for them. If Portal and similar tokens were like in the 6-month-old range and had an airdrop, is showing positive price momentum, or would show positive price momentum now, that would be actually a strong sign. I do agree with Brett that the market structure is a completely separate topic, but just from how we treated airdrops, we always kind of said that those 180 days are important for it to find its kind of true market value, and then needs to be reevaluated, because obviously in the beginning it's going to be a massive sell-off.
I have to say, I've learned so much in terms of like the way to think about tokens, and the way I'm like approaching risk and thinking about where you are and who you are as an investor versus all the other potential stakeholders from this investment cycle, 11 months. And I think one of the core lessons is just like how many people are in before you and at what price. And as Brett said, are they going to find some more tokens, and when are they going to find them? Like, it's kind of depressing when you just kind of think about it like that. But that's actually that's why on the flip side, when I was thinking about NFTs recently, it was like, I don't know if people are going to they're not going to find any more. And the people who want to get out of this thing are out. It's like, well, maybe this is a time where you can actually start to reassess some of these assets. So it kind of works both ways actually, but it's like one of the most important lenses through which I look at things now. Sam, would love to hear your thoughts either on the Portal stuff, or if you want to take it in a different direction, whether it's creeps or something else that's catching your attention at the moment.
I get the point around connecting creeps to Portal, but I think they are pretty distinct, separate projects. And I think that creeps specifically, I think the most recent post was around Paint It Red. So there's a lot of speculation around some sort of collaboration with Jirasun, the Jirasun Seshan's collection. And just if you look at the comments, the responses to that seems to be what people are expecting. Now, I don't have access to the Discord, and Creeps is a bit of a cult. They kind of give the information to their insider group first. So that price action could be connected to that a little bit more just within that community. And it's a strong community. Like, I've got friends in real life that collect Creeps, and they didn't really participate in NFTs or crypto outside of Creeps. They just liked it. They liked the IP. I do think, though, just looking at some of the other stuff on the Mintify heat map, like Winds of Yawanawa, like that popped off recently. And I know Seed Phrase made a post around it. And also there's like a pudgy derivative that's kind of hit a 0.05 ETH floor. And I don't know, like it kind of, so if you remember towards the back end of the last NFT bull market, there was, so art blocks and that kind of NFT, those kind of groups of NFTs did relatively well compared to the rest of it. Similarly, there was a lot of derivative collections that popped off. And I don't know, like I'm just getting that feeling again that could start to pop. And then you had the things like Goblin Town, which popped off, I think it was midway through 2022. So I don't know, like there's a number of indications to me that suggest that we're kind of seeing that recycling capital to potentially coming back into NFTs. And I think Punk's OTC actually made a post recently about the number of punk holders. Is that it's gone back up,
it's gone up, hasn't
it? Beyond where it was. So I don't know, like now that Blur's kind of behind us, the market seems to be healing. We've had a bit of a run in the fungible token market. It could be that recycling of capital back into NFTs if people feel comfortable. So yes, it's a bit of a red sea of red across the entire market at the moment, but I do think that those kind of themes and trends I'm beginning to see, and it'll be interesting to see if that continues.
I like it. Loads of great examples there. And then just to add to that list, we obviously had that eggs mint the other day that just completely exploded, right? So feels like the market like is ready to have appreciating collections of NFTs. So we'll continue to monitor that. Let's get into today's topic for discussion. Two things. Maybe because I'm looking at time, let's do one thing. This was an interesting, we spoke about like founder mode yesterday and manager mode and trying to think about things from like a business perspective. And we're going to try and do more segments to do with that type of stuff. Yesterday, there was a little bit of a sad story on the timeline, but, unsurprisingly, the unforgiving Web3 Twitter mob were not so forgiving. This is a story that came from Tally Labs, who, if you remember correctly, and if people are maybe unfamiliar, Tally Labs created Jenkins The Valet, which is one of the most popular in 2021. You can't call it a derivative necessarily, but it was like an associated spin-off from Bored Apes, where they were trying to do this fun work with IP, trying to get people to incorporate their individual IP into stories, create storytelling around the kind of Bored Ape IP. And then they kind of spun out and did their own stuff. They did their own NFT collection as well. And were building very much for creators and trying to leverage IP in Web3. Basically, yesterday, they came out and said, look, to be completely honest with you, we've done our very, very best. We are now, how many years? 2024, 3 years on now from that hype mania of 2021 in the summer. We've tried everything we can when it came to Azabala, their PFP collection. We've tried everything we can when it comes to Writer's Room. And they said, look, we just can't, doesn't make sense anymore to continue to pursue those avenues, to continue to pursue like new opportunities for those two sets of IPs. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all our efforts now into this something called Avenue Stories, which is more to do with, it's still to do with storytelling, but it's actually focusing on children, because I think that's what they where they think they've got the best chance of making something happen with their ideas here. So definitely, as usual, crypto Twitter wanted to point to how much money they raised. I think they raised a hell of a lot of money from the mints, like multi-million dollars from the mint. They also raised multi-million dollars from VCs, and people kind of questioning, well, what's gone on? My particular take is, look, sometimes these things happen. You do your best and things don't work out. But I'd be interested to hear if any of you guys had a specific connection to this, if you knew it any better, or how you view this type of thing when it happens. Maybe start with you, Legendary, and then we'll see what people think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Steve had a very good point on that on the Beanie's post. Beanie was saying, let me share that real quick. So Jenkins The Valet sold 8 figs for NFTs in 2 minutes, took in millions in royalties, plus another 8-figure seed round, decided to just pack up and call it a day, and no outrage on the timeline, nobody calling it a rug. Legacy NFT companies are nearly all walking dead. NFT 2.0, the future. And Steve replied to that in a very reasonable way, saying, I think an important distinction here is they delivered on the promised utility. At least to my recollection, they were upfront and didn't overpromise anything. 2021 founders who promised full metaverses in games then chose down, get less grace, in his opinion, which I tend to agree with. I did follow that project for quite a while because those concept of storytelling NFTs initially I found very interesting. And it's still sad to kind of see that they are, they had so much money and so much potential to do something with that. It's still sad to see that this is the outcome of that, but I don't think that they did anything illicit there, and I do think that they tried their best. Nonetheless, pretty regrettable outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you on this particular thing. I just think sometimes these things don't work out, you know? And as much as you want things to work out, I suspect the people who are most annoyed about this type of stuff are the people who had speculatively bought the NFTs in order to try to make money off it from that perspective. But I don't know. I think sometimes these things don't work out. It can't always go to plan. And to be honest, maybe all of that stuff and that experience is going to help them progress and create the new thing that they need to do in a much better way. Brad, would be interested for you to hear your take on this, whether you knew anything specifically about it, any general thoughts.
No, the only thing I knew about this project was the ridiculous drop of the original PFP, like the reveal. So like
That's it. It's a shame that's what they might only become known for.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, maybe we have the Kevin arc where, you know, so someone swoops in and it becomes the poster child and kind of an iconic thing and whatever saves it. I don't think there's enough promise there. I think
you're advising Pixelmon. They can add this to the IP, no?
There you go. There you go. I mean, it's in my mind, it's as bad as that original Kevin reveal. Like it was the ridiculous, that Christmas hat one, whatever. But yeah, I wasn't involved too deeply. But I do agree with the sentiment that like, as long as someone wasn't dishonest and they gave like a genuine attempt, people are allowed to fail. Like, because we overvalue people doesn't mean that like they are like at fault there, right? Like I would say, like, drawing this to like Friend Tech, which is something I was really close to, right? They made a shit ton of money and then didn't give an honest attempt. So like that is, and maybe they didn't like really promise a ton. So maybe that's on us for putting expectations out there. But I have more ill will towards something like that than someone that's just like, this is what we have, this is what we're doing. And you know, not everyone can execute.
I think that's a reasonable comparison. In the end, it does come down to intent. I think, Sam, would be interested for your perspective, maybe on like the raising aspect, because I've been thinking about this a lot. You know how recently when people have been doing raises, the NFT raise, it's kind of like structured into the broader scheme of raises. Obviously, back in 2021, it worked differently where people did an NFT mints that acted as like, I don't know, pre-seed, but with no obligations. And then companies would look and see who managed to get the attention, who seemed to be doing a cool idea, and would then like maybe even invest on the basis that these NFTs were moving. Do you think that's the way things will be, or do you think the way it operates now is like the NFT is part of the? What do you think about the raising structure and NFT's role in it, basically? Because I think one of the frustrations here is ultimately the NFT holders are the ones who get wrecked the most, maybe because now that this business is going to carry on in a different form, the investors, I guess, are still a part of that, but NFT holders are like left out the most. So just speak to that from your.
I think there's an important distinction though, because a lot of mint proceeds, I guess if you look at it from like a finance perspective, most of it would be perceived or recognized as revenue. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same as a capital raise. So in terms of equity, like an equity holder, so say a VC that gives a business X amount of funds, then receives equity in that business at whatever valuation, they have certain rights that someone who is technically an end consumer, like they're someone who's like buying the NFT, that's revenue. It's very different to a capital raise, and therefore the rights for that particular stakeholder is very different to an investor. I do think though, I don't know, like I think the way they've pivoted to something else from the VC standpoint, I'd be very interested to understand how that was structured, because obviously they would have given capital to the business for a specific purpose. Ultimately, they have to give shareholder updates, and you can't really just suddenly be like, oh, sorry, we failed. We're not going to give you your money back. We're going to spin off and do this instead, because there should be some sort of, I don't know, stake in that new pie. And I don't know how that's structured. And that's something that I'd be quite interested to find out more about, because ultimately, if that's the case, and I've seen it with plenty of other projects, like I think Origins I worked with, They were acquired by Treehouse. All the NFT holders pretty much were carved off as part of the community, had no eligibility, but all the IP and the actual infrastructure that was built got then acquired by this new company. I don't know if the VCs were paid back, but it was all within the same structure. So there was obviously a separate deal that happened there.
I think
and I think it's probably similar here as well. And I just don't specifically know what that is.
Yeah, I think whatever you kind of pivot to, if it's the same funds, if it's the same funds being used as part of the pivot, then those people will still have their ownership rights. Unless you're OpenAI and you're doing like, we're now going to be a non-profit, or we're going to start as a non-profit, then we're going to just become a company. And I don't know if anyone's following that complete mess where they now have to try to return to become a normal corporate company after kind of pretending to be a non-profit for a period of time. But look, I think that's interesting. Let's get into the bigger stuff to do with the market now, because the market's down and it keeps going down. And I think we spoke about sentiment being bad the other day when the market wasn't even that far down. Now the market is responding to the negative sentiment and is going down further. As we said, majors are down. What was it? Bitcoin's down 4%. ETH is down. Bitcoin's at 56.5. ETH at 2.3, down almost 5%. Solana down 4% to 129. The question here that I had was, Legendary, how, just as from a personal perspective, we obviously don't know which way the market is going in general. Personal perspective, what's your feeling on the market at the moment?
I'm not really surprised by the way crypto is behaving, given that we saw the stock market correct a fair bit with a trillion of value and dollars getting.
Nvidia got slammed in the last.
Annihilated. Nvidia down 10-ish%, Apple down 3-ish%. So I'm not surprised that, if anything, crypto's not reacting that strongly to it. In one of our What Are They Saying segments, I think it was, we spoke about the fact that in the last decade, out of 10 times, S&P 500 performed negatively in September. Now we have an election year where everyone's waiting to see how the election will go. So seeing that September is not off to a green start is not really surprising to see, in my opinion.
Yes, we definitely had that. It was something like, don't quote me on this, 8 out of the last 9 Septembers have always been red.
8 out of 10. 8
out of 10, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so September historically is a pretty bad month. Conversely, October is typically a good month. Let's see how we track from there. Another question for maybe Sam, let's go to you on this one. I did a tweet on this earlier today as well, because am I wrong to be confused about why Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol can be down so much, and yet memes are down like at the same amount? Like, I don't remember a time where the volatility was so similar across the board. Like, typically the whatever is considered the beta to Bitcoin or ETH or Sol will move more on times we go up, and then will move more on times we go down. But what we're seeing at the moment is that they're kind of moving in the same way. And so what did I write? I wrote this a little bit earlier today. I said the crazy thing happening in the last 2 mini market sell-offs. I remember this. We talked about this on the show, like a week ago, maybe. Majors are down, I don't know, 4 to 5%. Memes are also down 4 to 5%. Pepe's down 6% today. Dog with Hats down 4%. Bonks down 6%. Popcat down 1% on a day like today. This is not normal behavior. This was my thought, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, Sam and Brad. When discussing with Rahim on the other day on the show, I could only think memes are forming a bottom where sellers are exhausted and there's less speculative capital in them, if that's even possible. If the main meme's downside is capped, then I wonder if that means the upside is also capped, because the risk reward compared with majors is not good now. For example, if Bitcoin's at 55K, almost a 2x to 100K if you're bullish, and ETH at 2.3K is like a similar 2x-ish to all-time highs. I know it's a little bit less than that. So why bet on Popcat to surge through all-time high, which is around $1 to 1.6, when you can have the relatively safer Bitcoin 2x? Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like when you're thinking on a relative basis, that's what I'm wondering. And I think the major memes are in a bit of a no man's land here. Sam, what are your thoughts on
that? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think we touched on it last time, saying that there's structural differences. So comparing the two, there's different market participants, and I think that there's a lot more institutional involvement with the ETFs in your majors. But just looking at the means, I think we look at a lot of the stuff on Sol and some of the old stuff that people, I guess, hold. But if you look at things like Vista, there's a lot of capital that's flowing into there. I think the market cap of that is now 25 mil. But I'm even looking at a lot of these new things that are popping off. There's one called Vista Pepe that's at 500k. So I think there's a bit of capital that's rotating from Sol back to ETH to try those out. And it'll be interesting to see whether there's legs to this specifically. But I don't know. I just think there's the same capital within memes that are chasing a pump, wherever that might be. It's like we touched on like mercenary capital, but I think there's probably mercenary capital within memes specifically. And that ultimately kind of is consistent with that diagram of the lower lows and liquidity going down. Sure. And I think even Lil Lambo? I can't remember, Lil Moon Lambo, I can't remember his actual name, but he suggested that there's like a bit of a trough up as that liquidity then flows into ETH. And it could be a switch between chains, you don't know. But like, yeah, ultimately it's different structure, different market structure. I don't know in terms of how they're performing at the moment. It might just be a coincidence that they're both down similar amounts. I don't know. It's very hard to put a specific pinpoint on, I think, because there's so much going on in the market that it's hard to find that correlation.
Thanks, Brad. What do you think on this like risk reward point? Am I onto something there? Am I not onto something there? What are you thinking?
So this is something that Darren, or other people who have seen Darren on like the evening show with Thread Guy back when we used to run those pretty consistently. He had talked about that a lot of the time back then. Just like, yeah, if you're looking for a 2x upside, why not capture that in something that is virtually certain, in my opinion, or at least your conviction is 99% versus like. And this is something I wish I would have had over the last 6 months, year, whatever. Like I did the exact same thing with pups. I had pups like from a gajillion years ago. It ran up to a gajillion dollars, and I was like, just one more 2x, just a 2x, and it is now not that. But like in my mind, had I done that, and like my confidence interval and that's all it is confidence intervals. Like with any of these tokens, what is your confidence interval of another 2x versus like, yeah, you're right, a major going up? Like my confidence interval for BTC and Ethereum doing a 2x from here over the next, and time horizons matter, over the next 6 months, a year, whatever, which I'm fine with, is virtually 100%, right? Like I'll say 95%. My confidence interval for any specific meme capturing that versus doing what Pups did is like 20%, right? So like my confidence interval, and I would feel much better doing that and sitting in a major doing that. So I like, yeah, it's just, that's something I have reminded myself of and I want to do going forward. Whenever I say just another 2x, I say, okay, this is the time to sell, and I'm just going to rotate to a major.
That's an interesting point. Like, because I guess what you're saying is just another 2x is the point where you can take it and be like, well, I believe that Bitcoin is just the 2x. So why stay in this thing when the upside is only the 2x?
Yeah, the 2x is a 2x. Doesn't matter what assets it's in, and whichever one you're more confident in gives you the conviction to hold the thing. Like that's where you should place it. There's no reason you should have to capture that 2x in your meme coin. Like that's just satisfaction at that point versus like anywhere else, and it's all confidence.
I like it. I like the perspective. Legendary. Maybe a final take on this. We've kind of touched on the risk reward aspects, but what about the lack of selling here? One of the other ideas we were talking about on the meme side was just, I mean, are the sellers exhausted on that side? Like it's hard for me to believe that they would be exhausted necessarily on that side. And I saw someone drawing a comparison to how the NFTs, remember back into, and I'm a prime example of this for people who don't know. I remember I was in Moonbirds and I bought on mint day at 9 ETH on secondary market, watched the thing go to, I don't know what it was, 35 ETH. And then basically what happened over the course of the next however many years was a dip, and then like, a dip, and then a lower high, then another dip that was lower than the previous low, and then then another lower high. And it just did that forever and ever and ever until the things went to close to zero. Can you see something like that playing out for the meme stuff, Legendary? Or do you think there will be some emergent ones that, I mean, I think the other day you said you think some of these can come back much more aggressively in the next year. What's your thinking here?
Yeah, I think time is a very important component, like from two perspectives, because I don't think that sellers are exhausted. I think sellers right now maybe be a bit more patient, believing in the meme coin narrative, but that's a question of time until that attention is either shifting to a new meme coin or until fatigue sets in and it's back into the majors, and then there's going to be a sell-off. Now, obviously, there's going to be new emerging memes who are going to do well, because this has always been the game for years and years and years. And meme coins pumping is certainly not a novelty of this cycle. The intensity of that is, though. So time is an important component in terms of like the patience that holders, potential sellers have, but also from the other perspective, and that goes hand in hand with what Brett was saying on the confidence interval. If you have this higher confidence with a major and you just put your money into that, and that's my perspective on it, it frees up a lot of time, because they don't need to be worried about what is Mog doing,
Sure.
what are the people in the LA bubble, in the meme coin trenches doing, where are they moving next, what are they shelling, because the BTC pump or ETH moving up is just a bigger narrative than that, and it allows me to focus on other things. So that's where I'm kind of coming from.
Yeah, fair enough. I think those are some good points. As we maybe alluded to just at the top of this as well, the big things happening, like I think the election, a lot's going on with respect to the election. Obviously, it's going to have, I feel like we're kind of in a mode where everyone's trying to figure out, people are constantly refreshing the prediction markets to try to get a handle on who's going to win. And I think that will have implications for the market. And then obviously you've got rates as well, which continue to be expected to come down. And I think we'll see that have some type of effect pretty soon. But sentiment is low, so low at the moment. We spoke about that last few days as well. Let's keep it moving though. Speaking of the election, in fact, we'll get onto some of the election stuff with this presidential, with this President Trump and his family DeFi protocol in a second. But let's just hit the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the space in the last 24 hours. News piece number one, Samsung next to support Sony L2's effort by participating in its incubation program. It's nice to see some collaboration from two tech giants there. SEC charges crypto fund Galois Capital for custody violations. The PenPy DeFi protocol was hacked for $27 million. Unfortunately, that was not good. A bit better, $13.2 billion. Cantor Fitzgerald, CEO, says big banks and traditional finance will all go headfirst into Bitcoin under better regulation. Maybe that's a different point. I think one of the first points came out about the ETFs and stuff was that they said people just need time. Maybe they also need this election to happen and to figure out exactly where they stand as well. Blast announces the Big Bang 10-week bootcamp for mobile builders on Blast. As part of this program, Pac-Man suggested that participants will have $250K of funding, one-to-one mentorship, and 1 million Blast gold. Quite an interesting package to get people building on Blast Mobile. As we mentioned already, Jenkins Valet announces it will no longer pursue opportunities for its writer's room or Asabala IP, will focus on the children's app instead. And finally, NodeMonk founder Rock Toshi reveals they were also a co-founder of Ordinals with Casey. I thought that was a pretty interesting little bit of news with a little bit of a story there in the snapshot, which is pinned up top to the Twitter space if you wanted to read it. We've got 11 minutes left of the show. We've probably got time for both headlines. Maybe we'll just focus on the Trump one. We'll see how we go. But this first piece of news is to do with the Trump family's DeFi protocol. As if Trump is not crypto native enough with all of his chat about how he loves Bitcoin, his appearance at the Bitcoin conference, his selling of multiple NFT projects now. They are now, the white paper of his families and teams World Liberty Financial has kind of come to public attention. It was reported by CoinDesk that is being done by the same team that is linked to a $2 million DeFi hack. But it essentially just seems like a DeFi protocol. There will be a token involved, according to the white paper, according to the CoinDesk reports. The token is WLFI, a non-transferable governance token. Obviously, not necessarily an enriching thing from that perspective if you are not able to transfer it. Although, remember, lots of these tokens start off as non-transferable and then become transferable later if a DAO votes for it to become transferable. Some interesting commentary from this. This is just like one of the more popular takes that I've seen on the timeline. Would be interested to hear your guys' perspectives. Was this from Nick Carter? Nick Carter said, "Is there something that we as crypto Twitter can collectively do to stop the launch of World Liberty Coin or the protocol? I think it genuinely damages Trump's electoral prospects, especially if it gets hacked. It will be the juiciest DeFi target ever, and it's forked from a protocol that itself was hacked. It's an obvious target for the SEC. At best, it's an unnecessary distraction. At worst, it's a huge embarrassment and source of additional legal trouble." I'd say, in addition to the worst reading of the situation, it's a humongous attempt to enrich themselves further from the Web3 community after multiple NFT raises in different ways. So maybe we'll start with Legendary. What's your thinking here? Either on the fact that they're building a protocol or on this take that, like, look, for the sake of our industry, can we just say that you're bullish without doing this stuff? What's your thinking?
Yeah, first a real quick shout out to Kashmir in the YouTube comments made me laugh, saying Trump uses a 100x font on his phone. By the time he scrolls down his phone, the gas fee will change 20%. I tend to agree with the sentiment that it's a distraction from Trump's personal view of actually having to run a presidential campaign. From the point of the space, it is certainly a potentially big target. And I think that there's better and different things to focus on. And if you want that exposure to Web3 and crypto, he already has that with his NFT collection that has hit its 4th iteration, which we have been talking about. So I do tend to agree with that point of view that it's a distraction that shouldn't be.
Brad, I know you like to sidestep some of the political stuff. Will you enter the arena on this issue? What do you think of the Trump DeFi protocol from a DeFi perspective, as a DeFi lover yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't call me a lover, but I'm familiar. Yeah, like I'm not going to use it for 2 reasons. One, because I think it's a not serious attempt. But that said, I've seen Gabriel Shapiro as part of the team that was put together, and I did see some people talking about the advisors that were on there and saying like they're actually legitimate, like old school Ethereum core developers. So like maybe it's an honest attempt, but the combination of them not having ingratiated themselves whatsoever and feeling kind of grifty with basically everything that they've done to this point. And then 2, I believe it's supposed to be like real world assets / real estate focused. Like I didn't do Parcel. Parcel was something that's actually probably pretty Web3 aligned. And it's just not something that interests me or worked with me or whatever. I didn't have the capacity to add to my stuff. So for multiple factors, I won't be doing it, but I will be watching with much interest.
I like it. I like the allusion to Parcel and the real world asset stuff and maybe real estate itself, because Sam's brought that out a couple of times. I think that would legitimately be at least more interesting, at least more of a unique proposition. But so Sam, maybe if you could speak to that. I know you focus on the RWA stuff a lot more, and also the kind of question I saw some people's takes as well to say like, look, we don't need this. We've got Aave already. And it's like, I don't think I necessarily think that binary either. So like, yes, I don't think that it's necessary as such, and I think that there's bigger things for. I think the industry would be better off without this kind of aggressive attempt to participate. But at the same time, I don't agree with the principle that like, well, we've got one, like we've got Aave, so no one can build a DeFi protocol again. I think we still need competition for these types of things. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll use Aave as a base, and then they'll obviously elaborate on that. And I think Parcel, I really enjoyed using Parcel. I think it was
just explain what Parcel was for people in case they're not super familiar.
So you could effectively take directional bets on the price of property within a specific region, all on chain. So it was on Solana. So you could do leverage. I think it was up to like 10x leverage. I think, yeah, capped at that. But you do it on geographical locations. So they'd have some sort of methodology behind how that's calculated, and there'd be data behind it and all this kind of stuff that it would be audited. So that would all then be put onto this platform, which you could then trade as a user to then get exposure to that. And obviously, if you went long, then the open interest would change. So you could, it's essentially the same as like leverage trading, I don't know, tokens, but you'd be doing real estate. Slightly different to what I think they're building. Like by the sounds of it, it will be some sort of RWA integration into, which I suspect it could be tokenizing assets, putting them on chain, and then doing DeFi against them. So taking out loans and stuff. And that would be probably more aligned to what the Aave approach is. So be a slightly different structure, but yeah, there's still not that much information. I do agree with Brett that it seems high risk, because you mentioned you touched on earlier in the news about the North Korea hacks. Like if you've got a president behind a specific protocol, of course that's going to become a target. Like my capital,
you can see the headlines already.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, it's good that they've got those kind of advisors on there, but ultimately they're going to have the best brain power trying to attack that particular protocol. So I think the risk return, it would have to be pretty good for me to deploy capital there. But I probably will put a little bit in just to play around with it, to understand it, but everything that I'm willing to lose, I'm not going to put anything more than that in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Like the more prominent the founder now, particularly if they like have a political leaning or politically prominent, it almost becomes more of an attack vector potentially. Hadn't necessarily thought of that, but that's an interesting thought. Look, we're coming towards the end of the show today. Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend, our official American correspondent. Welcome to the stage. What are your thoughts on this?
GM fam, grifter's gonna grift. I mean, I do wonder how much Trump even has any kind of direct hand in any of this stuff. I don't think he does. I think a lot of stuff is just done in his name. But to your point, I think it's a terrible look, right? Especially if something bad were to happen, especially just over what amounts to be nothing more than an Aave fork, and doesn't really add anything new. There's the guy, I'll find it. I saw it earlier this morning. I'll drop it in the Modern Market Discord. Just had some extra details about the people behind it. One of whom is the guy involved with Doe, which we already touched on. But the other thing I wanted to say, just going back to the previous thing, and just to give everybody a little bit of hope about the election season, our head of institutional strategy and partnerships used to be at Coinbase. He knows this guy personally, who's like the chief legal officer at Coinbase, and he has actually been networking with both of the campaigns. So I'm hopeful that, again, yay Coinbase, that they're going to actually be able to, whichever camp gets elected, that we get something, to the broader point earlier about once we have some real regulatory clarity here in the US, that I think a lot of the people who are still sitting on the sidelines are going to come in big, and hopefully we'll have an amazing bull market after that.
Appreciate the positive spin towards the end of the show, Funky. As you say, one of the things that I thought as you were saying that was that I think to the extent that there are more positive sounds coming out on the Democratic side, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about it less on crypto Twitter, because of the natural instinct and natural leaning of crypto Twitter to go right. And so it's nice to hear, I guess, from maybe on the ground a little bit more from the kind of background conversations, that there are some positive conversations happening on both sides, even if that might not get reported and it might not get the kind of headlines based on some of the previous actions from the current administration anyway. So look, sometimes we are going to delve into this political stuff as it relates to crypto, but it will always be as it relates to crypto. We don't take any particular sides here. Hope you enjoyed the show. As always, we do this every day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube as well. If you prefer to watch, we're live on X video also for watching. And we publish a Spotify and Apple podcast if you prefer to consume your media there. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.